Okay, so we are ready to do the final section of the caterpillar's body, which is the tail section, and it's going to be worked in dark green. So we're going to get our dark green, and I've already finished off this last light green section. So we're going to add it onto that end stitch, and we're going to chain 3. And then if you want to work your tails in as you do your double crochets, you can hold those and work those in. So on the first 4 rows of the tail section, we're going to be increasing on each end. So just like the other sections of the body, we're going to start by doing our chain 3 and then working another double crochet in that same exact space. And I'm going to work my tails in with it. And then I'm going to go into each stitch across and do a double crochet. Then when we get to the end, we're going to do a 2 double crochet increase in the top of that beginning chain 3 from the row before. So I will meet you at the other end. If you want to pause the video, I will be working the rest of this row off camera. Okay, here at the end of our first row of our tail section, or the last body section, we're going to be working a double crochet in the top of this stitch. Now this is the one where we combined 2 stitches into 1 because we were decreasing. So find the top V of that stitch and do your double crochet in there. And then we're going to be working 2 double crochets in the top of this last chain 3. And working 2 double crochets in that will give us our increase. We're going to chain 3, turn our work, and then we're going to do exactly the same thing for rows 2 and 3. So you're going to need 4 rows of increases. So we've already done 1 row with 1 stitch at each end. We've increased 1 stitch at each end. So we need to do 3 more rows, giving us a total of 4 increasing rows. So I'm going to do this again just one more time, just in case it's been a while since you've picked up your blanket to work on it. So we're going to go ahead and in the same stitch as our chain 3 down here, we're going to work another double crochet. We're going to work our double crochets all the way to the end. And that will be the end of row 2. We'll make sure to do 2 double crochets in the top of the chain 3 at the end. And then after you finish this, once again, you'll do 2 more rows because you need a total of 4 rows where you've increased. And once I'm finished with those 4 rows, I'll meet you back here. Okay, now that we have finished the 4 rows of increases, we are going to work 12 rows of decreases. So just as a reminder of how to do that, when you finish your row, you chain 3. Oops. And then you turn your work. And then for our decreases, we are not going to work in the bottom of that beginning chain. We're going to take the next 2 stitches and combine them into 1. And I know this green yarn is pretty dark, so hopefully you're able to see those stitches. So we will yarn over, we will go into that first stitch and pull up a loop, and then we will only work that double crochet halfway, so you'll only pull through those first 2 loops. Then we'll yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and work through that one halfway so that there are 3 loops on our hook, and then we will pull through all 3 of those loops, and that will combine those 2 stitches into one, so we've decreased it 1 stitch. And as you can see, it increases here and then it begins to decrease here. So we're going to work 12 of those rows. I'm going to go ahead and work across. We're just doing double crochets all the way across. I'll meet you at the end of this row to review how to decrease at the end of the row. So if you want to pause the video, I'll meet you at the end. Okay, here we are at the end of the row. So as you look at the end of your row, you're going to be taking your chain 3 here at the end and this double crochet stitch and combining it into one. So I still have a couple of double crochets that I need to work before I do my decrease. So I'll work in those 2 stitches. Then we'll do our decrease just like we did at the beginning of the row. We will go into this first of the last 2 stitches and work that double crochet halfway, and then we will go into the top of our chain 3 and work our double crochet halfway, and then we'll pull through all 3 loops, and that will combine those 2 stitches into one. And you can see at the top there's only 1 loop at the top of those 2 stitches. So that's our first decrease row. We can chain 3, turn our work, then we will do our decrease. We're not going to do anything in the top of this one that's at the bottom of our chain 3, but we will go to those next 2 stitches there and we will work the decrease in there just like we did at the end of the row and at the beginning of the last row. So we finished 1 decrease row. You're going to need to do 11 more for a total of 12, and then your tail section will have a total of 16 rows. So I'm going to do all of those off camera. If you need a quick review of your decrease row, just rewind the video and watch those, and I will meet you at the very end of our tail section. Alright, so we finished the last section of the caterpillar's body, and I finished it off. So now we can grab our brown yarn and we can start to make the feet. Okay, to make the feet, we're going to make a slip knot and chain 10. Once again, we're using either an eye hook or whatever hook that your yarn calls for. So we're going to chain 10. All right, we're going to do a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook and double crochet in each chain across to the end. Now, just like our eyes and the beginning of our head, when we get down to the end, we're going to be working 3 double crochets on each side of this loop. So there's 2 sides to this end chain, and it really helps to keep there from being a big hole if you work 3 on one side and then you work 3 on the other. If you work all 6 in that same hole, it's just going to get really, really big. So pull on that end yarn, take a look at your knot, and then try to open up the other side. So you can see it right there. So open up the other side of that end chain and do 3 in there. And that way you'll have your 6 double crochets to turn your corner. Make sure I'm getting it all in the right spot. Yep. Okay, so we have our 6, and then here's our next little loop. So we're going to go in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to do a double crochet in the next 6 chains. It's the other side of our foundation chain. Okay, and then if you take a look, there's our beginning chain 3, and we're going to be working 6 stitches on each side of the bottom of that chain 3, and we're going to try to go put 3 in this loop and then come over here and put 3 in this loop, so you can kind of see if you spread that bottom stitch apart, or that bottom chain apart, that you can kind of see both sides. So we're going to do 3 in this one, and this one gets really big. If you were to do all 6 stitches, all 6 double crochets in that one loop, it would be really big. So you really have to kind of pull and wiggle to find that other little hole in the bottom of that chain 3 so you can do your other 3. And it really makes a difference in the way the center of your ovals look. So I'm going to get all this straightened out. So we have our 6 in that end. Okay, so there's our beginning chain 3, so that counts as a double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it'll work. So we'll just stick with it. And then we're going to do a slip stitch on the top of this double crochet to close our round. Okay, so then there's our oval to begin our first foot. We're going to chain 3, and then we're going to work in that same stitch right here that's at the bottom of that chain 3. And we will go all the way across until we get to the 6 down at the end. Just do a double crochet in each one. And if you spread your stitches apart, you can see where those last 6 double crochets begin. So we're there. We're going to work 2 double crochets in the next 6 stitches. So if it's been a while since you've done your ovals, if it's been a while since you've done your head or your eyes, this is just a refresher of when you did those. And since these ovals aren't going to be as big as the head, we really don't have to worry about them rippling too much. So that's why I wanted to make a whole new video for the feet, just in case we were going to do it a little bit different than the eyes or the head. Because the feet are not going to be sewn down onto anything, and they're not going to be so big. They're just going to be sewn onto the body and just hanging there. Let's see, there's our last stitch. I'm sitting here talking instead of watching. Okay, so we should have 6 sets of 2. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, now we're going to double crochet in each stitch down this side until we reach the other end with those 6, and we'll do the exact same thing. So yeah, like I was saying, the feet, since they're not going to be sewn on anything, we really don't want them to curl up. We want them to lay as flat as possible. And since they're going to be smaller than the head, there probably won't be a chance of it rippling if we don't add way too many stitches. Okay, so here are our 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll do 2 double crochets in each of those stitches to turn the corner. And there's our last stitch. We're going to do our 2 double crochets in that last stitch. And then we'll look for that horizontal stitch on top and do that slip stitch in the top of our beginning round. Okay, so we're going to make one more round for our foot. So we're going to chain 3. And then we're going to work a stitch into that same one right here. And then we're going to do a double crochet in each stitch across until we get to the end. And then when you reach your curve, so you can see I'm on top of the first set of the 2 double crochets. So I'll just leave 1 double crochet in here, but you can see that we're going to need to work a couple in this one because it starts to fan out. So we'll go ahead and work 2 double crochets in the top of that second stitch right there, and then we will work just 1, and then we will work 2 in the next one, I think my yarn split. Let me start that one over again. Okay, so let's take a look, make sure we're doing this right. So on the row before, we did 2, 2, 2. You do 2 in each one to turn the corner, but as your corner gets bigger, you don't have to do as many. So up here, when we turn the corner, we're just going to do 2, 1, 2, 1. So we're just going to alternate doing 2 double crochets in a stitch together, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet, and then just keep doing 2 and 1 alternating until you get to the other side and it kind of straightens out. I just did 1, so I need to do 2. And then 1, and I'm going to go ahead and do 2 in this one. And you can see how that last two that I did was the second stitch on top of, it's on top of this second one in this V from the row below. So that's perfect. It matches this side over here. So now we're going to just work one double crochet in each stitch until we reach our sets of 2 on the other end. Okay, so you can see below the one I just worked is the first of the 2 that I did on the row before. So now we can do 2 in this next stitch, then 1, 2 in this next stitch, then 1, and keep going, alternating 2 and 1. And then here we are at the last stitch where we can work in 2 of our double crochets in that last stitch. And then we'll slip stitch to the top up here. And then that is your foot. So we're going to make sure what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sewing. So right here where you just finished, we're going to be sewing this on to his body right through these stitches. So you're going to want to leave a good bit of yarn to sew on, probably I would say a couple of feet. I will leave a couple of feet for stitching it on. And then you can pull that through so it won't come unraveled. So there's one foot, and all you have to do is make 3 more. So you can pause the video, make 3 more of these feet, and then I will meet you back to sew them onto the body. All right, so here is the placement of our feet. And so I haven't sewn them on yet. I haven't put them on with any stitch markers. But what you can do is you can just take the side of the foot and this stitch to this stitch. You can stitch marker them on, and then you will take your tail, and oops, I forgot to leave a long enough tail. This one's got one. So you can take your tail and you can stitch all along here. So between here and here, your foot will be connected to your blanket. So you will do that for each one of your feet. And after we get all of our feet connected, then we're going to put the yellow eyelash yarn down his back, or if you would rather, we'll put some yellow fringe on. So I'll show you both ways to do that after we get our feet on. Okay, we finally come to the last thing for our caterpillar blanket, and that's putting on our yellow eyelash yarn or fringe on his back. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to start here where his neck meets his head, and you're going to run your eyelash yarn. You're going to do just single crochets all across his back and make those stitches so that your eyelash yarn will cover all of his back all the way to the end of his tail. And so we'll stop on the end of his tail right there, and then that will be the end of your blanket and you'll be finished. Okay, so I'm going to continue to use that same eye hook to do the eyelash yarn, and I'm just going to put my hook under that first stitch and then pull that through, and then I'm just going to single crochet over my tail end of that. So I'll just pull through that loop and then just start single crocheting across. So basically you're going to be doing single crochets in the side of double crochets, and usually what I do is I'll do 2 stitches per double crochet per side of the double crochet. So since these were our 2 rows where we kind of evened everything out, that gave us 2 easy stitches to go in. So then what you do is you can either go underneath that entire double crochet, which is pretty simple, or you can go in between, but it really doesn't matter. It's not going to show if you go underneath that entire double crochet and just do 2 single crochets around the side of each double crochet. So just make sure that you're grabbing only the single crochet on that outer edge. Like on this row where I did the increase, they're sitting pretty close together. Just make sure you don't go around both of those. Just make sure you only go around one. So let's come back here, and here is that the side of the first double crochet. I'm just going to come under there and I'm working my end in, and I'm going to do that single crochet. I'm going to go right back underneath there and do another single crochet. Now your eyelash yarn will be all tucked under itself, but when you're finished, you just come back through and you just pick it all out and it fluffs out. But I wouldn't worry about that until you're all finished, because it's kind of nice to have the eyelash kind of tucked in so you can see your stitches. So I've done 2 single crochets at the end of this first row, and you can kind of see your rows. So you'll do 2 single crochets per side of each row of double crochets. So I'll do a few of those. Whoops, I went around too much. I'll do a few of those to kind of show you, and I'm trying to get that tail woven in too. So there's 2 on that one, and then we're going to do 2 around this one. Sometimes it's a little tricky to pull through that eyelash yarn. Also, sometimes it's tricky because then you're going to see this stitch. Well, that kind of lies in the middle of these 2 rows, so you don't work anything in there. Just look for that long double crochet on the side of there. Just go underneath it. And then for the eyelash yarn, to get used to crocheting with it, you're not going to want to crochet tightly with it. You really have to pull quite a bit out so you don't get caught on your eyelash when you're trying to come through. And if you get caught a little bit, that's okay. Just keep on going. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just as long as you're catching underneath those stitches and you're coming through the 2 loops of the single crochet, then you're going to be just fine. But it does help to pull a little bit extra out and not crochet so tightly. So go ahead, and if you're using the eyelash yarn, go ahead and do those 2 single crochets per side double crochet all the way to the end of the caterpillar. And then for those of you who aren't using eyelash yarn, I'm just going to show you a few examples of how to do the fringe with whatever yellow yarn you have left over. Okay, so those of you who do not want to use the eyelash yarn, you just want to use your yellow yarn to make fringe, I'm going to show you a couple of things on how to do that if you've never done fringe before, and a little some tips and tricks about that. Usually for whatever length yarn I want to make for my pieces of fringe, I usually just grab some kind of little box or something and wrap around. If I'm going to make a pretty long fringe, DVD boxes are really good to wrap around, because on the side of the DVD box usually there's like a little indentation, and it's really easy to get your scissors under there and clip it. This little box right here has a ridge, so it makes it really easy to get under here and to cut the yarn also. And the fringe on the blanket, we don't want to make it super long, so this size would probably be perfect. So I'm just going to wrap the yarn around this box a few times to give me enough pieces to just show you how the fringe works. I can hold this down so it doesn't get caught. And if you know exactly how many pieces of fringe you're going to need, because you know how many stitches you're going around, then you can count that as you wrap. All right, so after you wrap your fringe, and this is the side I'm going to cut to give me all these pieces. So after you have your fringe cut, you're going to need your crochet hook and your fringe. I'm going to use the side of, even though I've already put the yellow eyelash yarn on, I'm going to use the side of one of the body parts to show you how this works. Now, just like we did 2 single crochet stitches on the side of each of these double crochets, we'll probably do 2 pieces of fringe, and then also do one kind of on this ridge, which is in between the rows in a way. But really, when you're putting fringe on, you can make it as thick as you want. So the way you're going to do your fringe is you're going to get a piece of your yarn and you're going to fold it in half, and then you're going to put your hook in your project, and then you're going to pull that through, and then you're going to keep these 2 together, and then you're going to pull that through. So that gives you a piece of fringe, and you'll just keep doing that and make it as thick as you would like. You can put them right close together, like right here in the next stitch if you want to. Now, there is a right side and a wrong side to your fringe. So before you start doing all your fringe, take a look at your project, because this is really the side of the fringe that I like the best. So I would want this to be the front of my caterpillar and this to be the back of my caterpillar. Now, if you prefer this as the front, that's fine. You can do that, whichever one, but this is just my preference. So if you like the way the fringe looks and you wanted to do that all along the caterpillar's back, you could. And then you decide how long you think that fringe should be. And you don't have to have all these pieces the exact same length. If you wanted them to be just haphazard and random, you could even come back in here and you could clip them all different lengths. So it's really up to you how you want to customize your caterpillar blanket. So either you can do the fringe or you can do the eyelash yarn. I'm going to finish picking my eyelash yarn out to fluff it up, and then I'll show you our final project.